Welcome to Live, Laugh, Launch, the go-to-market podcast for everyone who brings products to life. I'm Katie Moss, and whether you're leading strategy, building campaigns, designing experiences, or figuring out how all the pieces fit together, this show is for you. We explore every angle of go-to-market success, from the big picture thinking to the nitty-gritty execution. Each episode dives into what really works, what doesn't, and how cross-functional teams collaborate to turn ideas into market wins. If you're in marketing, building a startup, or just fascinated by how great products find their audience, you're in the right place. Let's launch into it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Live, Laugh, Launch. Today, I have with me Sarahelizabeth Mason. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
And she works at the intersection of Hollywood and enterprise technology with experience spanning Comic-Con, immersive VR and emerging tech, major awards shows, and global enterprise trade shows, bringing entertainment-grade storytelling into modern go-to-market. Currently, she's head of go-to-market for Atempo and creative director and founder of Magical Events Co. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. You and I have known each other quite a long time. We were just talking about the fact that you actually had a podcast all the way back to 2011.
Yes, in the early days. Yes. It's amazing how far podcasts have come and how, you could say oversaturated the market is, but at the same time, I think it's funny because radio is something that has always endured and that just sort of like morphed into this. And I think there's something about this kind of storytelling and narrative that really will never go away. I find that exciting, and I say the more the merrier.
Yeah, for sure. You have been involved in everything, like I said, from Hollywood to corporate events. That's pretty rare in go-to-market to have that kind of background. What is the through line that's guided your decisions across these different worlds?
For me, it really comes down to storytelling and narrative, because at the end of the day, whether it's Comic-Con or whether it's a product that we're trying to sell through a trade show and present at a trade show, you still need to tell a compelling story. You still need to get people enthusiastic about the narrative and have them relate to it, no matter what it is, whether it's someone walking into experience at Comic-Con where they're so excited as a fan and they're living it now, or you're walking onto a trade show floor and you immediately have an understanding that that's something that solves your problem. So that to me is, at the end of the day, it always has to come back to the narrative and storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. You have gone from donor galas and film festivals to these trade shows, and you've been involved in a lot of like partner channel go-to-market as well. What did the creative world teach you that most B2B marketers still get wrong, in your opinion?
I would say that B2B marketers need to step outside the wall of text in their booths. And they need to stop using complexity as an excuse for being bland, because they are always wanting to show everybody as many bullet points as they can. And that's not going to work. It's something that people just don't seem to get away from. Whereas the creative world, if you're boring, you lose immediately. So you already know, like, you can't be boring. And I personally feel like you need to apply that same concept to everything when it comes to events, which is my core competency, but also go to market, like the entire piece of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think the hardest thing in B2B is simplicity in messaging.
Yes.
Especially when you start to have too many cooks in the kitchen, because a lot of the biggest proponents of kind of this complicated messaging, in my experience, are like executive team members. And it can be really difficult to like get around that sometimes, for sure.
Executive and also tech. I deal a lot in the world of IT with sales engineers.
Yeah.
And product management also, because and I get it. They work so hard on these products. And so the features are important to them. And granted, the features are important to the people they're selling to as well. But there's a difference and a delicate balance between making sure everyone knows all the features and how you present that. because anyone can go download a PDF or like go to a website to get everything that's needed. But learning how to message it in a way that resonates with people as opposed to turns them off because it's too much is really a trick. It's a skill.
Yeah. And I think, at least in my opinion, AI is not great at the simplifying and storytelling.
I agree. I mean, we're all using it. We're all going to use it. I will say that in one of my current versus in the tech world, it's relied upon. I literally have scenarios where people are using AI to decide what to say to me, asking me to respond with AI. But, we literally are, it's like we're not communicating anymore. We're just communicating back and forth, putting the messaging through. And so I agree. It doesn't simplify it. Sometimes it spits it back with like so much more complexity.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a balance between taking pieces of what you can, it's the use and misuse of anything. Like it's how can you use it to be more productive, but how can you also use your brain? And if you really step outside of that and think about what are real people going to respond to and what's going to make them change their behavior to just now go to the buying stage. And that's what I'm always trying to figure out.
Yeah. And I think folks in B2B can forget to, you're still marketing to a person at the end of the day. Granted, some of your, personas that you're marketing to are more technical. So to your point, there does have to be that balance of features and things. But at the end of the day, I think simplifying, I would agree with you, is definitely a very important thing to do that not many companies are doing well.
Well, and also finding the value of what you're saying, not necessarily simplify, but like, is what you're saying valuable? If it's not, then don't say it. It's got to, everything you say has to matter and have value.
Yeah. And have value to your audience, not to
exactly. You. Yes.
Also a common faux pas. So you mentioned events. Lots of people hear events, and I don't feel this way because I worked with lots of great events people, but some folks can think, oh, the events people, like marketing, they're great with logistics, they're planning things, like they're not necessarily strategic contributors to the business, for example. How do you design an experience at an event that actually drives revenue outcomes that gets the business attention?
Sure. I'm going to use two examples. I'm going to use trade shows and sort of fandom conventions. You're not just trying to create traffic, you're trying to change behavior. And you're changing behavior through an experience you've created for them. So one, you need to know what your audience is. So let's say B2B trade shows. The biggest problem for me right now, or anytime really, is I could go to, say, the Las Vegas Convention Center, walk into a trade show, a tech trade show, get into Bill and Ted's like phone booth, press 1996, walk out and be in the same show floor. Get back in, press 2002, be in the same show floor. Like nothing evolves with trade shows. It is almost as if in the B2B world, they feel like they're the keeper of, I say it's the keeper of no fun, but they see it as the keeper of important data that needs to be presented in a certain way, as opposed to doing something that will draw people in to a conversation. About a few months ago, I went to a trade show called Supercomputing, and the best booth was a pickleball court. Literally, that's what it was, a pickleball court. And now these guys are serious IT integrators, and they have huge customers. But what they did with that was, it's like, of course, yeah, I want to play pickleball on the show floor. I mean, first of all, you're walking around and you're exhausted and you're seeing the same thing booth after booth. Yeah. And you have so much information you have to take in. And even the most technical people, you can only take in so much information when you're walking a trade show booth for hours and hours and hours. So that, I use that example because that's the kind of thing that brings people into it with you, brings their guard down so you can have a conversation. And then actually takes things to the next level. That's a behavior changer, as opposed to just walking past booth after booth. And then it's similar. Now, this is B2C often in the like fandom world, but you go into an experience lounge where all of a sudden you are part of the story that you've loved for years, decades. You're going to go buy all the merchandise. You're going to start buying streaming subscriptions. So it's really about, what can I create that's going to make you part of this with me and make you change your behavior because of something you felt here. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, for sure. And that definitely makes sense. And I think it's also great from the branding perspective. Obviously, if in the B2B world, I won't speak to B2C because I'm not as familiar, but in the B2B world, there's always like, how many leads did you drive as part of this? How many?
Right.
And that sort of like brand component is harder to quantify, right? But it goes exactly to what you're speaking about, because I think of the trade shows and events that I've attended over the years, and I remember the exciting booths where we, got to do fun activities. And I do remember those brand names. If I worked with them or not, at the end of the day, maybe not, but I kept them in mind. And some of them I did work with over the following years. So I think that's a good thing to remember too.
I'd also say that it's specifically with events, you're accelerating conversations that are already in process. Because when people come to a trade show in B2B, you're there for a reason.
Yeah.
You are there searching for something. You already have started that conversation. You need to continue that conversation. And a lot of times people, especially executives, get very caught up in, as you said, how many leads are driven in. And what does that mean? How many people you scanned a badge of? That doesn't mean anything. Yeah. To me, it's about how many real conversations did we have that are accelerating pipeline. And yes, that can be hard to quantify, but that's what I am more interested in looking for. And that's how I measure success.
Yeah. How do you get the exec team, CMO, whomever, CEO, whoever's involved in the business and cares, how do you get them on board with kind of taking that different route to measurement, that different route to storytelling? Like, that can be a very difficult battle to fight, I would assume.
It's a very difficult battle. I can't say I've won all the battles over the years. You really need a forward thinking C-level team, but you also need to have a success that you can show them. If you, even what's worked for me is saying, give me this test case. It's going to cost $5,000 out the door, $3,000 out the door, whatever in your world is like a small budget. And I'm going to show you how this is going to work versus how we've been doing this over and over again. And you kind of need to be a salesperson to your own team to be able to do that. That happens with me all the time. Like, I have a X amount of budget for a global event strategy, and I know what I have to do. Like, I know what success has got to look like to them. And I have got to convince them we need to do this over here. And it's going to seem a little outside the box, but I'm going to show you why that's going to work and this isn't. So you have to sell it, and if you can get them to give you a test case, that'll help.
Yeah, that makes sense. So over the years, you've worked across a number of different markets, and you've traveled a lot too. So as I know, how does that go-to-market storytelling shift across cultures, and what changes and what shouldn't change?
Well, I would say that it's not as much about so working Japan is different than working in UK. Working in the UK is different than working in Italy. Working in Italy is different than working in Brazil. So it's really more about understanding that you don't know the culture and the geo probably, and you need to do your homework and you need to prepare. And storytelling it's still the concept of you need to tell a story and a narrative that hits pain points for customers. But you approaching different cultures and different languages and different geos. I mean, even just APAC alone, dealing with Korea, dealing with China, dealing with Japan, so different. You just really need to prepare. If you don't have the connections, like I have traveled all over the world and done events all over the world. So I have lots of local connections now that I can call up and say, hey, we're going to do this. Can you tell me if this is going to make sense? And I have like questions. But if you don't have that, it's not hard to obtain, go online and find a group, or reach into your company's assets. Like who are in Japan, they work with distributors versus resellers directly. So you're going to deal with a company that's a distributor and they're dealing with the resellers. So call your distributor, call your reps in the area and sit and get with them and find out what matters to them. Make sure you know that you don't know anything. That's the real key, because I've seen this happen to people, especially coming up in the space, where they think that they know how to do go to market marketing and events so well. They just like had so much success, and it doesn't matter if you haven't researched your geo correctly.
Yeah.
Because that it just changes everything. So to me, it's about doing your homework, being prepared, and listening to the local teams.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I mean, it's been so important in what I do as well in content and product marketing. I have been in businesses where they unfortunately, siloed everything in the US and UK. And all the messaging came from there, all the positioning. And then whether or not that was adjusted for the different countries depended on if they had field teams, if they even existed, how involved they were, and how much research was put in by the people on the ground doing the original work. And so I think events, that happens as well, as you mentioned. But for our product marketing listeners, I think that's a huge gap for a lot of organizations where you do get caught in this, like, where are our biggest markets? That's how I'm going to go to market. And that's how I'm going to talk to everyone. And it doesn't work, as you can attest on the ground at events.
Doesn't work. Nope.
Yeah. So you have worked with a lot of partners and across channel marketing quite a bit. What breaks most partner go-to-market motions before they get off the ground?
Well, first of all, if a partner cannot explain what your product does in one sentence, they won't sell it. And that is something is got to be a golden rule, because I have run into that so much. Yeah. Where we've lost partnerships or the momentum just got dragged down because they just didn't, it was too complex. Don't try to be too many things to all people. In other words, when it comes to a partnership, you really need to have defined what your product is, what your solution, what pain points it addresses, and also what pain points of theirs it addresses. That's really critical, because especially when you're dealing with sales teams, they only care about what's going to close a deal for them. Right. So is this something that's going to close a deal for me? Do I have to learn all kinds of stuff to figure this out? Nope. So because I deal across teams with partnerships. So I'm dealing with the SEs, I'm dealing with the sales teams, I'm dealing with the partner program people, the partner marketing people, the partner events people. So I deal with a huge ecosystem there. And then also the C-levels who are saying, okay, you are our anointed partner right now. So that can be extremely challenging, but it really doesn't work when it's not defined exactly what the solution solves for them. So I would say that's a key thing.
Yeah, I've seen that break on my side as well, for sure. By the time the messaging position gets, not only to other countries, et cetera, as we just talked about, but also to other organizations that you're trying to work with. But I think also, like, at the end of the day, it's all about money too.
Yeah.
All right. So in your opinion, what does real go-to-market alignment look like between marketing, sales, and partner teams beyond just like decks and messaging and shared goals?
I would say a mutual respect and mutual dependency, like understanding that we need each other. And that's going to look different, depending on what products are. I can speak specifically to what at a Tempo, we are in an ecosystem where our product, which is a data management software, works with, big storage manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of that ecosystem, we all need each other to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get someone's data off a legacy storage unit if you don't have a data mover to get it off. So we all need each other. We all are dependent on the relationships. And I think that respecting that is a big thing. And then also just making sure you've determined who your key partners are too, because that is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you if you've narrowed that down, because as soon as that's narrowed down, you all already know that you're dependent on each other, and that mutual respect is going to make things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's more apparent in some industries than others, right? Yours, it's very obvious how much you need to work together to kind of make this ecosystem work. And some other technology ecosystems, I'm thinking about places I've been, CRM or HR, other things. It's not always as clear. And so you often have to kind of pitch, this is why we're important, this is why we can help you. So it's a different kind of process. Have you been in more of those environments too, where you had to kind of like pitch the solution?
I mean, I'm still doing that because there are a lot of partners that don't know the solution. So that's something that's kind of ongoing. But yes, and I've definitely been in both, where I've worked for companies where we're the big guy that everybody knows, and I've worked for companies where we're the little guy that is trying to get mind share with the bigger guys. That's a whole other dynamic right there. So it's really about if you're the little guy trying to get into the big guy, you just really need to help them understand why you're going to drive business for them. Because like you said, at the end of the day, it's about money. It's about driving pipeline. Yeah,
for sure. Awesome. If you could give a piece of advice to a company building a partner program today, we'll say a B2B SaaS company, what is the first system or process that you'd put in place?
Well, I mean, this is kind of sort of part of what I was just talking about, but to narrow your focus, because I've seen this go really wrong, where people will decide they're going to look great if they have 1 million partners. And the more partners that they have, the better they look. I can tell you, having dealt with this so many times, even if you have a huge team, it takes away the focus, and it takes away ultimately the messaging for the consumer, or the, whoever the end user is. And so that is the very first thing, because I've had that happen with working with other partnerships, and where companies have kind of stepped over that, and they've said there's constantly an evolution of who their platinum partners are, or who their white glove service is going to, whatever they're going to call it. If you're coming to me without having defined that, it's going to be a problem already, because it means there's not going to be consistency, and we're not going to have momentum, and we're not going to keep going on things. So to me, that is my biggest piece of advice, is make sure you've narrowed the focus on who your key partners are. And hey, if we're one of them, let's do this. But that always gets overlooked, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about you being involved in hosting your own podcast and being in charge of, creating stories for both corporate and sort of entertainment side of things. But there's a lot of noise today, and you hinted at that at the beginning of this cast, where you said, there's so many more people. How do go-to-market leaders earn attention with everyone being so overloaded and skeptical?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. I would say trust beats volume is the first. If you can gain people's trust, that's going to go a long way. Yes, we are completely oversaturated with podcasts, with social, with AI noise, everything. It still comes back to storytelling. Do you solve a challenge that somebody else isn't solving, if you can articulate it in a different way that reframes how someone sees their problem, that to me is something that is, I mean, when I'm looking for stuff, that's, first of all, the trust factor is key for me, but also, has somebody reframed this? One thing that I see all the time, I know you do, is everybody using AI to write their LinkedIn posts now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, it's like, can I just tell everyone, can you at least change the font from Aptos to like Arial or something, so it's not quite so, I mean, like, there's so many tells with ChatGPT if someone just copy and pasted it. And
I get really annoyed halfway through if I notice, and I'm like, ugh.
I'm out if I see it.
Yeah.
Like, if I see those blue arrows and I see that someone literally just copied and pasted it, I'm out, because there's no trust factor there, because that means you aren't really, there's no integrity behind this. And I'm not saying that we don't use AI, and we should all use AI. But again, as I said before, it's like, use it as a productivity tool. Don't replace your brain with it.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that is adding to the oversaturation. To me, it's like, if you can weed through and see that someone's not doing that, that's almost like an easy breakthrough. Because I have these conversations all the time, how people are so sick of just seeing like regurgitated ChatGPT stuff. So if you can really try to use a narrative that's different than that and gain people's trust, and then be consistent, keep putting things out that are consistent, you're going to have followers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's crucial in, again, we talked about earlier, you're still speaking to an individual, even if you're marketing to B2B. So that trust is, just as or even more important in that case.
Absolutely. I mean, manager or a CTO or would be an end user, and we're still speaking to them, not just, a company. Somebody's making a decision that's a human being.
And for consumer brands, it's like every experience that a consumer has is such a reflection of that brand. I'm thinking about, reading someone's post about being on an airplane and having a stewardess or flight attendant. What's the gender neutral term? A flight attendant, do something really nice for them, for example, and then they're going to go make a post about it. That's a great example of just that kind of human to human interaction, really making your brand and really like surfacing that trust that's so important for people. And Absolutely. That's something that we need to find ways to do on the B2B side as well, I think.
Very true.
So how do you decide which stories are worth telling for B2B companies versus like what people may be saying internally, which could be different?
Well, the customer needs to be the hero always. So, jumping on what you were saying, the use cases and the customer's journey are the stories worth telling. It always kind of comes back to that for me when I'm having conversations, even, where people are saying we need to put this out and show what kind of great feature we have or what kind of relationship we have with this company. At the end of the day, trust and good storytelling comes from people who are in the field doing it and using the product, who have a problem that was solved. And so I'm always trying to find those stories and uncover them and champion what our customers are doing more than anything else, because I think that's more powerful and it has a lot more credibility.
It definitely does. I'm involved in quite a lot of product launches on the product marketing side, and often businesses believe that people care more about their technology and products than they actually do. So sometimes people really, you don't need to do a press release about XYZ feature that doesn't actually impact anyone. You don't have any use cases, case studies for example. You're just putting out noise. And so I think that can be an example of where the internal kind of leaks out into the external world, and, it doesn't work.
And you see that a lot. I am really pushing the minimalist strategy these days for a variety of reasons. One, because of all we've been talking about with the oversaturation, budget reasons, but also I just really am at this point right now where I feel that whatever you're gonna say has to have value. You don't used to be different with social media, and you know this, just having been doing it for a while. It used to make sense to be constantly putting things out because you had the edge if you were the ones doing that. Now there's really kind of a backlash reaction, I find. Like, in fact, a lot of people that I talk to, just even that, like colleagues who I talk to, they're so tired of going on LinkedIn because they can't take all of it that's on there. And so I've had these conversations where I'm saying, well, where are you getting your information? They say, well, we'll still go on there, but I'm actually sort of picking and choosing outlets that I follow or read, things that I'll read, and as opposed to constantly just going through a feed because it's not meaning anything to me anymore. Yeah. So I've found that we're doing better in terms of getting actual leads and converted leads with doing much more strategic a lot less. Like, seriously, like I'm putting out content and social posts really only when there's something very much of value. And it also goes back to that trust thing and credibility, because I want people to be used to us putting something out so they say, this must be important if they're putting it out. Like, we've kind of come back around to that, which is strange to me. But if you stay in something long enough, you see things come back around. That's where it is for me right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I remember the content for content's sake days. You know, I started as an SEO copywriter and we were making that content. Was all of it great? Nope. But we had some keywords in there, you know, so it's oversaturation in a different way now, which is interesting. But I mean, the trust piece really has flowed all the way through, and I don't think that will ever change. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. It was great to catch up with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.